Some really incredible things are possible in a Teal organization. But in order for an organization to truly be Teal, there are 3 necessary elements that it needs to have. Okay? The first is actually an element of self-awareness. Okay? The organization needs to be self-aware. What I mean by that is all the other paradigms that we've talked about, red, amber, orange, and green. Each of these paradigms, you can operate as an organization from one of these paradigms and not actually really know that that's what you're doing, right? We've probably been a part of an organization that maybe was operating largely from an orange perspective or maybe a green perspective and really didn't know or understand that that's what it was that it was doing, right? A Teal organization understands that. It understands the other paradigms, it sees them at play inside of its organization, and is actively trying to use the paradigms in the ways that they're most appropriate for, but striving to be an organization that utilizes the Teal mindset, right? So that does kind of bring us to the second element, the second necessary element of a Teal organization, which is that they do actively, not only do they understand the Teal mindset, but they really hold it, right? They believe it. If you're holding the Teal mindset, right, you're doing that thing we talked about in the last video, right? You truly see yourself in the other systems that are around you, right? So to you, it actually feels like you're helping yourself when you're helping the other people that are a part of the system with you, right? So if you hold that Teal mindset, that's what you're doing, right? So in order for a Teal organization really to function to its fullest potential, the participants in the system need to actively actually hold that mindset, okay? And then the third and final thing is actually that the system is autonomous. The participants in the system are autonomous. They're self-managing, okay? So what I mean by this is that no participant in the system is compelled to be operating from that standpoint, right? They do it by their own choice, and this is necessary. It's totally necessary for this to work this way. Otherwise, it can't work, okay? You need to have each individual be choosing of their own free will to be participating in that way, okay? We'll go deeper into how this works and how you can actually rely on that to happen. But the main point that I'm trying to make right now is that each of these 3 things together is what makes a truly powerful Teal organization possible. It's what causes it to emerge, right? And so it's no coincidence that each of these 3 elements are actually covered in each of the 3 main chapters of the Alcadea Way, right? The self-awareness aspect is taught through the framework, right? So we go through the framework and we learn about all the colors and the theory, and we start to see and understand ourselves in a higher context, right? We start to see and understand ourselves so we can become self-aware, right? The Teal mindset is taught through the development chapters, right? So if we're trying to figure out, okay, how can I see myself this way? How can I learn to understand this way and really truly hold that mindset? Then the videos in that section will be really helpful, right? And then finally, the practices, right? How can we be autonomous? How can we actually accomplish that? How can we give everybody the ability to manage themselves and be able to do that safely, right? Well, it actually works really well, okay? Sometimes you might think that might be chaotic. How can a self-managing team actually function? But it works. Here's a great example, okay? Let's jump to one of our short films and see just a quick glimpse at how a self-managing team can really start to work. There are a lot of misunderstandings around self-managing teams. It's actually very simple. In a basic low-speed 4-way intersection, the goal is to get as many vehicles through the intersection as possible. First, you might try placing something in the system like a police officer or a stoplight. With this configuration, you'll get an average of 289 cars through the intersection in 15 minutes. Next, let's try some 4-way stop signs. Interestingly, experiments done with this configuration will actually average 385 cars through the intersection in the same amount of time, an increase of 33%. Now, let's try the intersection configured as a roundabout. Experiments done with this setup resulted in an average of 460 total cars through the intersection in the same amount of time, a total productivity increase of 60%. What's going on here? In the first configuration, all of the system's management is consolidated into one individual. He alone has to make sense of the system's complexity and then decide how the participants should respond. In the four-way stop sign configuration, the responsibility of managing the system is instead taken on by the participants of the system who work to coordinate the traffic themselves. The participants become more engaged and aware, increasing the overall attention of the system. There are two things, however, that still hold this kind of configuration back. One is the stop sign rule system, which actually functions as an external source of management by requiring every vehicle to come to a complete stop before they cross the intersection, including in situations where the stop technically isn't necessary. The second is the design of the intersection. Participants have to be aware of possible collisions that could come from three directions, and when the collisions do occur, they have the potential to be extremely damaging. All of these aspects are alleviated in a roundabout. All of the system management is done by the participants. Each driver enters the roundabout at an appropriate speed based on their own experience and judgment. The design of the intersection also works to make it easier and less risky for the participants to coordinate with each other. Potential collisions can only come in one direction, at low speeds, making the risk easier to understand and less damaging if it does occur. Tremendous benefits are possible when organizations are designed well to support self-management. These organizations have proven to be more productive, more efficient, and more engaged. In the past, we only had to train one person on how to understand and manage the system. But to succeed today, we are challenged with the need to help every member of our team to understand those same principles, and to do so in a way that will be consistent across our entire organization. So one of the really cool things that we see in that short film is that a Teal organization ends up being a lot more productive. Right? They're capable of being more productive because they are able to offload that management to the individuals in the system. Right? So that's what you see. Teal organizations end up being way more productive, way faster, way more agile, way more creative. Right? They're able to accomplish much more because they're offloading that management to the individuals who are already very capable people. Okay? And so you start to see some really cool things happening in self-managing systems that you can't see in any other kind of organization, right? Because in a Teal organization, because you are self-managing, you are in charge of how much vacation time you take. You are in charge of how much money you make, right? Each participant in the system is self-managing in those areas, right? And so this is usually about the time people say, okay, you can't do that. It'd be total chaos, right? And part of that is because there's a misunderstanding between what it means to be self-managing and maybe entitled, right? We're not saying you are entitled to whatever salary you want or you are entitled to whatever vacation you want. What we're saying is that you self-manage those aspects, right? So this isn't, okay, you just pick whatever speed you want to go through the roundabout and we'll all stop traffic to make sure that you can go through at whatever speed you want, right? What this is, self-management is like the roundabout, right? You are able to go through the speed technically at whatever speed you want to, but you're not going to choose to go through the roundabout at a speed that's going to be unsafe, right? You're going to do it at an appropriate speed, right? And this is especially true, again, if you hold the Teal mindset. If you truly see yourself in the organization and you see your team members around you and recognize these people need to be safe too. These people need to have everything that they need, and I would never do anything that would actually harm them because that's literally going to be harming me. Everything that I am comes from the success of this organization. And so why would I choose to do something that would hurt it? Because that would actually be hurting me, right? And so in these Teal organizations, that's what you see, is that the people will actually choose things that are appropriate. And that's why it's so important to have each of those three elements, right? The framework, development, and the practices, because all of these work together, and the three of those combining together is what truly makes this possible, okay? So that's what you see in Teal organizations. They're more human, there's less politics, and there's vastly better ways of decision making. It's basically pure human potential unleashed in an organization. It ends up being really cool. I'm excited to show you the details of exactly how this works so that you can use this in your organization to be able to see these tremendous benefits.